Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. People have been killed in a car bombing followed by an armed attack in Afghanistan's eastern Ghazni province. Medics say 24 others are seriously wounded and the death toll could rise. Meanwhile, another suicide attack targeted the head of provincial council in the capital of southern province of Zabul. 3 people have been killed and 23 others, including the head of provincial council, Jan Haq Bayan, were wounded. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks yet. Three farm workers have been killed in a suspected Boko Haram attack in rice fields of Kushob village in northeastern Nigeria. The village chief says the assailants tied up the workers and slit their throats. Locals say 6 others have been seriously wounded. In Ethiopia, the government has launched a manhunt for rebel leaders in Tigray after the army took control of the region's capital. But leaders of the Tigrayan forces have vowed to keep fighting the federal troops. Thousands of people are believed to have died and nearly 44,000 have fled to Sudan since the conflict began earlier this month. The global number of COVID-19 infections has crossed 62 million with over 1.45 million deaths. Brazil has registered nearly 52,000 coronavirus cases and 587 new deaths over the last 24 hours. India's caseload is nearing 9.4 million with over 41,000 infections and 496 deaths overnight. Pakistan has registered over 2,800 cases and 43 fatalities overnight as the death toll nears 8,000. And in cricket, Australia beat India by 51 runs in the second one-day international at Sydney Cricket Ground to win the 3-match series 2-0. Chasing a massive 390-run target, India could only manage to score 338 runs in their 50 overs. Australia's Steve Smith was declared man of the match for his brilliant 62-ball century. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. 30 people have been killed in a car bombing followed by an armed attack in Afghanistan's eastern Ghazni province. Medics say 24 others are seriously wounded and the death toll could rise. Following the blast, the militants stormed the compound using assault rifle fire and rocket-propelled grenades. Head of the provincial council said the bomber targeted Afghan National Security Forces compound in Ghazni. He said army commandos were based at the compound. Meanwhile, another suicide attack targeted the head of provincial council in the capital of southern province of Zabul. Head of provincial council Jan Haq Bayan was wounded in the attack along with 3 others. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks yet. For more on this, we are joined by Ayaz Wazir, a political analyst from Islamabad. Sir, thank you very much for your time. Sir, today, 30 people were killed in a car bombing on Afghan forces in Ghazni. It comes after the U.S. announced withdrawal of most of its forces from Afghanistan. Can Afghan forces take control of their country's security without help of foreign troops?
Well, this is very unfortunate that it's happening at the time when the peace talks are on in Doha, and one was hoping that peace will soon return to Afghanistan. But I wonder if anyone has claimed the responsibility because the Taliban, though they have not accepted ceasefire or reduction in violence, but certainly during this time, I don't think they'll be going for targets like this to kill people in Ghazni or in Kabul, or that obviously creates a bad taste, as they say, in the mouth. But other spoilers are there also. Daesh is in Afghanistan, and they have done before. I won't be surprised if this one also turns out to be their doing. So this is, I don't know who actually has done, but I'm sure this is the job of one of the spoilers. Or even if the Taliban has done it, they have not concluded an agreement with the Afghan government. The agreement they have concluded was with the Americans. They are not taking the Americans are not taking them. But the Taliban and the Afghan government, they are in a state of war against each other. But I have not heard if the Taliban have claimed the responsibility for this.
Sir, Pakistan has been warning against peace spoilers of Afghan peace process. Do you think it's another attempt to sabotage the ongoing process?
Well, I won't be surprised really if not only this, if God forbid, if in the future also incident like this takes place, because spoiler within the country and outside the country are certainly there in Afghanistan, and they would be doing their best to derail the peace process in Afghanistan, because that is not going in their interest, in their individual or in their collective interest. Peace in Afghanistan is not in their interest, so they'll go for it. But those who are really worried for peace, who are striving hard to bring peace to Afghanistan, they would not do it. I mean, the Afghans are tired of it. The government side and Taliban, they are tired of fighting, and they want to enter into an agreement to bring peace to Afghanistan. So the spoilers are certainly there, as Pakistan has very rightly said, that not only individual but certain countries in the region are also interested in derailing the process, in bringing chaos and destruction in Afghanistan, because that serves their purpose.
Ayaz Veer, sir, thank you very much for talking to Indus News. Now, moving on to Pakistan says it has always been a voice for Muslims as a founding member of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Detail in this report.
The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has unanimously adopted a resolution in support of the Kashmir cause. It was taken up at the 47th session of the OIC Council of Foreign Ministers in Niamey. 57 member countries categorically rejected India's illegal and unilateral actions in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. In a tweet, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi says the resolution unequivocally supports the Kashmir cause. He says the legislation rejects the RSS-backed Indian government's illegal actions since August 5, 2019. Qureshi said the resolution seeks the cancellation of the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Order and the grant of Domicile Certificate Rules 2020. He asserts that Pakistan looks forward to hosting the 48th Conference of OIC Foreign Ministers in 2021. He mentions that Pakistan has also become part of the 6-member OIC Executive Committee.
In India, protesting farmers have rejected the BJP government's offer for talks to resolve a deadlock over 3 new farm laws. They also refused to go to the government-designated protest site. Thousands of farmers have blocked entry points of New Delhi, demanding the withdrawal of new laws. Talking to the media, the protest leaders said they understand that blocking borders is causing inconvenience to people, but he said they're not ready to move to Barari. Farmers said the laws could cause the government to stop buying grain at guaranteed prices, and it will result in their exploitation by corporations that buy crops cheaply. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif urges the European Union to abandon its double standards and condemn the scientist's killing. In a tweet, he said Mohsen Fakhrizade's assassination is an expression of the desperate warmongering of the perpetrators. Zarif said there were serious indications of an Israeli role in the murder. Yesterday, President Hassan Rouhani said Iran will retaliate the scientist's assassination appropriately. Meanwhile, Turkey called for the perpetrators of the attack to be held accountable. The Turkish Foreign Ministry urged all sides to act with common sense and restraint. The UN has renewed its commitment to supporting Palestinians and ending the occupation in line with relevant resolutions. UN Chief Antonio Guterres said this while commemorating the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinians. The UN chief said he supports the two-state solution to the conflict and urged both sides to reach a solution. He noted that the expansion of illegal settlements and demolition of Palestinian homes and structures caused great misery. He hoped for a future of peace, dignity, justice and security for the Palestinian people. Guterres also extended his condolences on the passing of longtime negotiator Saeb Erekat. In Nigeria, 43 farm workers have been killed in a suspected attack by Boko Haram militants in the northeastern Kushob village. Kushob is near Maiduguri, the capital of the restive Borno state. Authorities say the assailants tied up agricultural workers and slit their throats. Village officials say 6 others sustained serious injuries, while 8 others missing were presumed to have been kidnapped by the militants. Last month, Boko Haram fighters killed 22 farmers working on their irrigation fields near Maiduguri. In Ethiopia, the government has launched a manhunt for rebel leaders in Tigray after the army took control of the region's capital. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed says his government will bring leaders of the Tigray People's Liberation Front to justice. Police have already issued arrest warrants for over 100 Tigrayan military officers charged with crimes in connection with the conflict. Meanwhile, rebel leaders have vowed to keep fighting the federal troops. Thousands of people are believed to have died and nearly 44,000 have fled to Sudan since the war began earlier this month. In Thailand, anti-government protesters have challenged King Maha Vajiralongkorn's control over the army and military's role in politics. Protesters gathered to march to the 11th Infantry Regiment, which command has been given to the king in 2019. In a statement, the Foreign Ministry said the country adhered to the rule of law, but the right to freedom of speech must be kept within it. But protesters in the latest defiance criticized the king and urged that the army should belong to the people, not the king. Talking to media, protest leader Parit Shivarak said in a democratic setup the king does not direct the military. Earlier, protesters demanded Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's resignation, but now also seek to curb the powers of the king. Criticizing the monarchy is officially banned under the Thai constitution and laws. In the U.S., the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has dismissed yet another lawsuit filed by President Donald Trump's campaign. The suit sought to invalidate mail-in ballots, throw out all votes, and allow the state's legislature to pick the winner. The case urged that a Pennsylvania law from last year allowing universal mail-in voting was unconstitutional. In a unanimous decision, the court brushed aside all 3 claims, terming the second an extraordinary proposition. The battleground state has already certified President-elect Joe Biden's win by 81,000 votes. The development follows Friday's decision by an appeals court rejecting Trump's claim of an unfair election. The outgoing U.S. president has so far refused to concede defeat to President-elect Joe Biden. The global number of COVID-19 infections has crossed 62 million with over 1.45 million deaths. Brazil has registered nearly 52,000 coronavirus cases and 587 new deaths over the last 24 hours. More in the following report.
The holiday season, coupled with the flu season, has sent the already aggressive spread of COVID-19 into overdrive. Latin America now accounts for 1/3 of all deaths and infections of the world to date, while high mortality rates continue to kill more. The U.S. has now reported more than 100,000 infections and 1,000 deaths on average every day for the past 26 consecutive days. All public and private social gatherings have been banned in Los Angeles for 3 weeks from tomorrow under new restrictions.
Our numbers have increased to devastating levels, potentially for capacity at a lot of hospitals. And so the only way I know to keep individuals alive is frankly to hope that you don't get the disease in the first place. That is hands down the best way.
In Europe, record high deaths and infections are surging once again through most of the countries. Italy is on the ropes again, with hundreds dying and tens of thousands contracting the virus every day for the past month. But as the French government eased its restrictions, citing a slow rate of infections to encourage consumer activity, experts fear irresponsibility and carelessness might make matters devastatingly worse.
I hope people are going to be responsible. I hope we won't regret this lifting of the lockdown. The shopkeepers are making an effort, and now it is everyone's responsibility, up to everyone's civic duties.
In Asia, India is fearing another spike in new cases following the festival season and the holiday season. India's caseload is nearing 9.4 million with over 41,000 infections and 496 deaths overnight. Meanwhile, South Korea is considering tighter restrictions to clamp down on economic activities after last week saw the fastest spread of infections.
A wave of anti-lockdown and anti-vaccine protests is sweeping Europe. In the UK, more than 150 people were detained from central London. In a statement, the Metropolitan Police said their arrests were made for offences including breaching coronavirus regulations. They said some protesters also assaulted a police officer. Meanwhile, thousands converged on Germany's border with Poland to object to coronavirus curbs. Several hundred people from the adjacent Polish town of Slabice joined in on a call from the Cordon Ken movement. The group says coronavirus restrictions are endangering fundamental freedoms. In Pakistan, 43 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 over the past 24 hours, pushing the death toll to 7,985. The health ministry says 2,257 people tested positive for the virus overnight. The ministry says there are more than 47,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. It mentions that out of over 395,000 countrywide cases, almost 340,000 people have recovered. The ministry says over 171,000 cases have been detected in the Sindh province, while Punjab has reported over 118,000 cases. In the capital city Islamabad, more than 29,000 have been infected. And now it's time to take a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and moving on to at least 3 people have been killed by flooding on the Italian island of Sardinia. Regional Environment Councillor Gianni Lampis told reporters that the situation in the bitty town was particularly dramatic. Lampis said the city mayor has informed them that some people are still missing. He said a red weather alert has been issued with more heavy rain expected to hit the whole of the island. Local media said authorities are in search of missing people. In Australia, authorities have issued a total fire ban as parts of the country stifle through the hottest night of November. According to Rural Fire Service, dry weather conditions in New South Wales pose a severe fire danger. Temperature in Sydney surpassed 40 degrees Celsius, with New South Wales, South Australian and Northern Victoria crossing the 45-degree mark. The Met Office has predicted the heat wave to last 5 to 6 days in parts of New South Wales and southeast Queensland. Australian energy market operators said the demand may exceed supply in New South Wales amid soaring temperatures. Australia has been experiencing hotter and longer summers every year. China's Chang'e 5 probe has entered the lunar orbit, completing a vital step on its way to collect and return moon samples. Details in the following report.
China was late to the space race as it didn't send its first satellite into orbit until 1970, but it has caught up fast. In a first such attempt by any country in 40 years, Beijing launched a mission to return moon samples to Earth. Now the Chang'e 5 probe has entered the lunar orbit after flying about 112 hours from Earth.
When it is approaching the moon, it needs to slow down to be captured by lunar gravity. At the perihelion, we have to ignite the fuel in the engine so that the probe can enter into the lunar orbit. That's the function of braking at perihelion. Without braking, we will fly over the moon.
Braking at perihelion is a critical maneuver as the probe, traveling at a high speed, needs to lower its relative velocity to enable it to be captured by lunar gravity. But for the Chang'e 5 probe, which weighs 8 tons, its engine thrust is just 3,000 newtons. Thus, it requires a second braking before it is captured by the lunar gravity.
Since it is too heavy, we will have it traveling along a big elliptical moon orbit after the first braking. The orbit period is about 8 hours. After orbiting 3 times, which takes about 1 day, we will start braking a second time to enter the orbit with a perihelion of 200 kilometers.
Only 2 other countries, the United States and the former Soviet Union, have so far brought samples back from the moon.
Actor David Prowse, the man who donned the iconic Darth Vader suit in the original Star Wars trilogy, has died aged 85. Speaking to media, his agent Thomas Boyington said the actor's demise after a short illness was a heart-wrenching loss. Boyington said though Prowse became famous for playing monster roles, he was a true hero in real life. His acting career spanned 50 years. In 2017, Prowse appeared on the screen one last time in a music video from Welsh rock musician Giles Lewis. He represented England in weightlifting at the Commonwealth Games in the early 1960s before embarking on an acting career. Now moving on to the business stories, Britain says the next week will be very significant for Brexit negotiations with the European Union. Speaking to the media, British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab said negotiations were down to their final 2 basic issues. Raab said a deal was possible if the EU showed some pragmatism. While he noted some progress on competition issues, Raab said significant differences remain on fishing. Canada has blocked mass exports of prescription drugs to the United States. In a statement, Canada's health minister said the decision was taken to avoid medicine shortage at home. Patty Haddo said Canada represented 2% of global drug sales and sourced 68% of its medicine globally. She emphasized the need for vigilance in maintaining the country's drug supplies. Companies also must provide the government with information about existing or potential shortages when requested. The Canadian measure went into effect just days before a U.S. importation prescription drugs rule. It comes in response to outgoing President Donald Trump's efforts to allow imports from Canada to lower some drug prices in the U.S. Australia beat India by 51 runs in their second one-day international at Sydney Cricket Ground to win the 3-match series 2-0. Chasing a massive 390-run target, India could only manage 338 runs in their 50 overs. Skipper Virat Kohli and KL Rahul scored half-centuries, with India briefly looking in control. For Australia, Pat Cummins took 3 wickets, while Adam Zampa said George Hazelwood took 2 wickets each. Aussie batsman Steve Smith was declared man of the match for his brilliant 62-ball century. In boxing, Mike Tyson's exhibition fight against Roy Jones Jr. has ended in a draw at Staples Center in Los Angeles. While there were no ringside judges to score, the World Boxing Council formed a set of judges that remotely scored the bout. Tyson came out firing and was in control of the bout the entire way. Jones Jr. managed to pick up the pace in the later rounds enough to earn him a draw against brutal Tyson. After the fight, Tyson shot down any idea of making a return to professional boxing. Tyson has not fought since a loss to Kevin McBride in 2005. The 51-year-old Jones, who has simultaneously held a record 7 belts, last fought in 2018. In football, Borussia Dortmund have suffered a shocking 2-1 loss to visitors Cologne in their Bundesliga clash. This was the first time Cologne beat Dortmund at home in 29 years. Elias Zahiri scored a goal on either side of halftime to put the visitors 2-0 ahead. Thorgan Hazard did score one for Dortmund in the 74th minute, but Lucien But Lucien Favre's side failed to find a late equalizer. In another fixture, Bayern Munich came from a goal behind to win 3-1 at Stuttgart. The hosts went in front in the 20th minute after Tanguy Koulibaly beat charging keeper Manuel Neuer to the ball to score. And now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.